Is the Raptor too good at what it does? Today, we are embarking on a supersonic journey with the ultimate deep dive. A 2-hour master compilation dedicated entirely to the undisputed king of the skies, the F-22 Raptor. Whether you've been following this channel for years or you're just joining our flight wing, this is the definitive look at the world's premier 5th generation air superiority fighter. Conceived during the twilight of the Cold War under the Advanced Tactical Fighter or ATF program, the Raptor was built to counter advanced Soviet threats that never quite materialized. In the early 1990s, it famously won an intense head-to-head competition against Northrop's cutting-edge YF-23. While the debate over who had the better plane still rages today, many believe that Lockheed Martin clinched the victory through sheer public relations savvy by demonstrating an impressive high angle of attack maneuver and executing a dramatic live-fire missile launch from its internal weapons bays. After the smoke cleared, what emerged was an aerodynamic marvel that genuinely defies physics. Powered by two Pratt & Whitney F-119 PW100 engines with two-dimensional thrust vectoring nozzles, the F-22 is one of the most impressive propulsion systems ever fitted to a fighter. Each engine is officially described as being in the 35,000-pound thrust class with afterburner, and public estimates often put its non-afterburning thrust at around 26,000 pounds. Now what this means is that one Raptor engine in military power is often credited with more thrust than a classic F-15 Eagles engines produce in full afterburner. And as far as raw static afterburning thrust goes, the F-119 even edges out the SR-71 Blackbird's famous J-58 engines. What this raw power does is it allows the Raptor to supercruise at Mach 1.82 without using those thirsty afterburners. When you combine that with advanced avionics like that AN/APG-77 ASA radar, an internal M61A2 Vulcan cannon that can fire 100 rounds per second, and that Goldium Indian tin oxide canopy for electromagnetic shielding, well, the F-22 has achieved a staggering 40-to-1 kill ratio in simulated combat exercises. And although it's built for air dominance, the Raptor has proven its multi-role versatility, from dropping precision-guided bombs on ISIS targets in Syria to acting as a high-altitude intelligence-gathering node. The Raptor is constantly redefining its mission parameters. And who can forget its most famous real-world mission? Flying under the call signs Frank 01 and Frank 02, a brilliant tribute to the World War I Arizona balloon buster, Lieutenant Frank Luke Jr., an F-22 climbed 58,000 feet over the Atlantic, firing an AIM-9X Sidewinder to cleanly down a Chinese spy balloon. Yet the Raptor story is also one of complex compromises. Bureaucratic shifts and low-intensity conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan saw its original production run of 750 airframes slashed to just 187 total aircraft, and this closed the assembly line prematurely back in 2011. And because federal law strictly prohibits its export due to classified technologies, this limited fleet has been worked incredibly hard. But retirement isn't happening just yet. Instead, we are witnessing the dawn of the Super Raptor. Strange, mirror-like chrome coatings have been spotted over Nellis Air Force Base. These are thought to reduce infrared signatures. Additionally, there's been testing of low observable drop tanks, new lightweight carbon fiber helmets, and next-generation sensor pods. Among other things, the F-22 has effectively become the critical high-end testbed for the 6th generation F-47, also known as the Next Generation Air Dominance or NGAD platform. So strap in and grab your favorite beverage, because over the next 2 hours, we are stitching together the absolute best highlights, technical breakdowns, and historic milestones from our F-22 archive. Lock onto that subscribe button, smash that notification bell, and get ready. Let's take a look. PilotPhotog.com. Widely considered the best air superiority fighter in the world, the Lockheed Martin F-22 is a 5th generation, twin-engine, single-seat, all-weather stealth tactical fighter aircraft. Developed from decades of air combat experience, the F-22 excels in its one true mission: to defeat any air adversary it encounters. This is accomplished by the Raptor's incredible performance, advanced avionics, and stealth profile. Notable features of the Raptor include twin tails, a trapezoidal wing, and a golden canopy which is coated with a thin layer of indium tin oxide or ITO. This acts as an EM shield to maintain stealth characteristics. Having been deployed since 2005, let's take a look at some of the specifications for the F-22 Raptor. Length 62 feet 1 inch. Height 16 feet 8 inches. Wingspan 44 feet 6 inches. Maximum speed estimated at Mach 2.25. Supercruise Mach 1.82 or 1,220 miles per hour at altitude. Empty weight 43,340 pounds. Maximum takeoff weight 83,500 pounds. Combat range 530 miles with 115 miles in Supercruise. Engines: each Pratt & Whitney F119 PW100 thrust vectoring augmented turbofan, 26,000 pounds of thrust dry or 35,000 pounds with afterburner. Thrust to weight ratio 1.25 with loaded weight and 50% internal fuel. The F-22 is armed with an internal 20mm M61A2 Vulcan rotary cannon and typically carries 480 rounds of ammunition. The M61 is capable of firing 6,000 rounds per minute or 100 rounds per second. Additionally, the F-22 has 3 internal weapons bays, 1 large central bay and 2 side bays. Along with this, there are 4 external hardpoints. To maintain its stealth characteristics, the F-22 can keep ordnance inside of its weapons bays, briefly opening them to deploy munitions. Some of the possible weapon loadouts can include, for air-to-air missions, 6 AIM-120 AMRAAMs and 2 Sidewinders. For air-to-ground missions, 2 1,000-pound JDAMs, 2 AIM-120s, and 2 Sidewinders, or 8 250-pound GBU-39 precision-guided bombs, 2 AIM-120s, and 2 Sidewinders. It seems like the Raptor never leaves home without some air-to-air missiles. The 4 external hardpoints can be used to carry 600-gallon drop tanks or 5,000 pounds of ordnance per pylon. Aside from its incredible performance and weapons options, part of what makes the F-22 so deadly is its advanced avionics. While some of the details are still classified today, here's what we know about the F-22's sensor platforms. The F-22's radar is the AN/APG-77, which is an actively electronically scanned array or AESA radar. AESA radars are superior to mechanically actuated radars since they can change scan direction in mere nanoseconds, where mechanical radars have to physically move the dish to scan different parts of the sky. Officially, the radar has an operational range of 100 miles, but some speculate that this could be as high as 150 miles with an estimated 250-mile range for a narrow beam search. Defensively, the F-22 uses the AN/AAR-56 Advanced Missile Launch Detector, which warns the pilot of a missile launch so that evasive maneuvers and countermeasures can be deployed. Additionally, the F-22 also has an AN/ALR-94 radar warning receiver, which warns a pilot of radar emissions or tracking and is said to have a range of over 250 miles. Along with warning systems, the F-22 also carries flare and chaff dispensers to be used as countermeasures. And finally, along with the integrated communication, navigation, and information or CNI systems, the F-22 makes extensive use of data link systems, which allow it to receive and send information, thereby providing it a complete picture of the battlefield. In many ways, the F-22 can be thought of as an evolution of the incredibly successful F-15 Eagle. In 1981, when the F-15 was still relatively new, the Air Force put forth a requirement for an aircraft to eventually replace both the F-15 and F-16. This was driven by the advancements in Soviet air defenses, along with increasing numbers of MiG-29s and Su-27 fighters. In what became known as the Advanced Tactical Fighter or ATF program, requirements included the use of advanced materials including composites, high performance with Supercruise, and stealth technology. By 1986, the competition had been narrowed down to two competitors, Lockheed and Northrop. To build such an advanced airplane, Northrop teamed up with McDonnell Douglas, while Lockheed teamed up with Boeing and General Dynamics. This resulted in two designs, Lockheed's YF-22 and Northrop's YF-23. Along with these two designs, General Electric and Pratt & Whitney each developed an engine which would be used in both fighters, the engines being designated the YF-120 and the YF-119, respectively. And while the two designs both met the competition's requirements of survivability, supercruise, stealth, and ease of maintenance, they each had very different design philosophies. Seen as more conventional, it's not hard to view the YF-22 as an evolution of the F-15, with both utilizing twin vertical tails and horizontal stabilizers. Having been a partner of Lockheed in the F-22 development program, General Dynamics likely applied much of the data they obtained from their F-16XL program into the F-22. If you haven't already, check out my video all about the F-16XL. Meanwhile, the YF-23 was a more cutting-edge design with a rhombus-shaped wing and an all-moving V-tail. Performance-wise, the YF-23 design was faster and more stealthy, while the YF-22 was slightly more maneuverable at low speeds due to its thrust vectoring. The YF-22 was also generally seen as less of a risk when it came to manufacturing costs, and in 1991, the YF-22 with a Pratt & Whitney engine combination were chosen as the winner of the ATF competition. Why did the YF-22 beat the YF-23? In a debate that still goes on today, many have felt that the YF-23 was the better airplane and should have won the competition. Essentially, you could say it came down to public relations. The Lockheed team conducted a demonstration flight of a high angle of attack maneuver, while the Northrop team decided not to do so. And even though the YF-23 could perform the same maneuver, by not demonstrating it, the implication was that the YF-22 could perform the maneuver while the YF-23 could not. Additionally, although not a requirement of the test program, the Lockheed team also conducted live-fire exercises of an AIM-9 Sidewinder and an AIM-120 AMRAAM missile from the internal weapons bays. This was seen as going above and beyond what was necessary for testing and made a favorable impression among the evaluators. Some have called the YF-23 design ahead of its time. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see a dedicated video on the Black Widow and the Grey Ghost. Getting back to the F-22's development, the Navy briefly looked at obtaining F-22s as part of the Navy Advanced Tactical Fighter or NATF program. A swing-wing F-22 was envisioned, but it was found that the added weight and potential loss of stealth characteristics introduced by the swing-wing was not acceptable. The NATF program was cancelled in 1991. Can you imagine Sea Raptors operating off of carriers? The ATF program was initially planned for a run of 750 advanced tactical fighters. However, in 1996, this number was reduced to 648 aircraft. During the 1997 budget cuts, this number was further reduced to 339. And by 2003, the number was reduced further to 277. And while the Air Force advocated that 381 aircraft was the minimum number necessary to meet its need, in 2004, this number was reduced again to 183 aircraft to be assigned to 7 combat squadrons. It's hard to imagine now, but in the early 2000s, the F-22 was seen as an unneeded luxury. With unconventional low-intensity wars going on in both Iraq and Afghanistan, the need for a super advanced air superiority fighter was extensively debated. This, along with funds being diverted to both the F-35 and F-18 production lines, led to the final decision to only produce 187 total aircraft. At its peak, the F-22 production line was producing 2 new airplanes a month while employing 95,000 people in 46 states. More recently, with both Chinese and Russian designs closing the gap on the F-22, in 2016 studies were being conducted to resume production of the F-22. It was then estimated that to produce an additional 194 F-22s would cost a total of $50 billion, or about $215 million per aircraft. Unfortunately, the Air Force decided not to move forward with this plan. And in 2011, the last Raptor rolled off the assembly line in Lockheed's Georgia factory. The F-22 is operated exclusively by the United States, And while countries such as Australia, Japan, and Israel expressed interest in obtaining F-22s, U.S. federal law prohibits exports of the F-22 as it contains many still classified technologies. Instead, the F-35 was developed with similar technologies as the F-22 and designed to be more affordable and available for export. Introduced operationally in 2005, by 2007 the F-22 had achieved full operational capacity, or FOC, with the 1st Fighter Wing and the 192nd Virginia Air National Guard unit, being the first fully integrated F-22 squadrons. During readiness trials in 2008 in simulated air combat, the unit earned a kill ratio of 221-0. Additionally, F-22s have somewhat routinely intercepted Russian bombers, including Tu-160s and Tu-95s, with the first such incident occurring in 2007 near Alaska. Starting in 2009, F-22s have been deploying to Al Drafa Air Base in the UAE, which lies less than 200 miles from Iran. In fact, in 2013, an F-22 had intercepted an Iranian F-4 that had gotten a little too close to a Predator drone, which was flying near the Iranian coastline. And although initially not designed as an air-to-ground attacker, in 2014, as part of the opening strikes during Operation Inherent Resolve, F-22s dropped 1,000-pound laser-guided bombs on ISIS targets in Syria. By 2015, F-22s had dropped over 250 bombs in support of the effort, and also played a key role in deterring Russian, Iranian, and Syrian aircraft from intervening against Kurdish troops. These operations highlighted one of the lesser-known or talked-about features of the F-22, reconnaissance and surveillance, something that the F-22 performs very well given its stealthy profile. Today, some of the current units operating the F-22 include the 27th Fighter Squadron, the 43rd Fighter Squadron, which is a training unit, the 90th Fighter Squadron, the 94th Fighter Squadron, the 199th Fighter Squadron, which is an Air National Guard unit, the 411th Fighter Test Squadron, the 422nd Test and Evaluation Squadron, the 433rd Weapons Squadron, and the 525th Fighter Squadron. The Air Force plans to operate the F-22s well into the 2050s, and while the F-22 is still widely considered the best air superiority fighter in the world, there are signs of the gap closing with near-peer rivals like China and Russia. This, along with a production line of F-22s being prematurely cut short, will likely serve to hasten the development of a 6th-generation aircraft, one which the F-22 could serve alongside with. In fact, the Air Force has started working on plans to develop and deploy a 6th-generation aircraft, in a program which is known as the Next Generation Air Dominance, or NGAD. Obviously very highly classified, the NGAD program's goal is to develop a 6th-generation fighter and produce it in sufficient numbers to maintain air superiority in the near future. After several mirror-like coated F-22s were photographed flying around in the desert, speculation began to develop that the Raptor airframes may be or have already received significant upgrades. While this information is classified, taking a look into the publicly available Pentagon's fiscal year 2023 budget request documents provides us with some details and clues as to what is going on with the Raptor fleet. Apparently, select F-22s are being used as testbeds for technologies which are being developed for the Next Generation Air Dominance, or NGAD program. Along with working on developing a 6th-generation fighter, the NGAD program is actually the focal point of a system of systems that will secure U.S. tactical and strategic air dominance for decades to come. The main aircraft itself includes a modular, highly adaptable, and optionally manned platform that incorporates survivability, range, and next-generation sensor fusion capabilities. This fighter component of the NGAD program would likely be able to fly higher than 70,000 feet, faster than Mach 2, and have a range of 1,500 nautical miles or more, and of course be stealthy. As part of the next generation ecosystem of tactical aircraft, the NGAD initiative also includes companion unmanned attritable drones, along with advanced secure networking infrastructure to integrate them all together. There have been reports of an NGAD demonstrator flying for a couple of years now, although what exact capabilities the demonstrator has is still unknown, and that's where the Raptor comes in. As part of the NGAD initiative, select F-22 Raptors are participating in an Advanced Technology Development or ATD program. In order to implement new advances as fast as possible, the program is using rapid acquisition build strategies such as agile and lean methodologies that allow the Raptor fleet to quickly develop, test, and more importantly, field new software and hardware technologies as they become available. This essentially means that the F-22s are being used to test and optimize new technologies while serving as a conduit to perform technology transfers of these systems into the NGAD platform. Additionally, this testing is mutually beneficial. Discoveries and advances being made on the NGAD program are being implemented back into the Raptor fleet, meaning that the technology transfer is going both ways. This is a win-win situation, since the NGAD program gets a high-end testbed in the F-22, and the Raptors will adopt new technologies that will hopefully extend its service life. As mentioned previously, it would also appear that some of these modifications have already been seen by the public. Aircraft spotters have captured photos of at least 2 chrome-coated Raptors with a mirror-like finish taking off and landing at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. The purpose of these coatings is thought to help further reduce the Raptor's infrared signature, as well as shrink even further the jet's already incredibly small radar signature. Interestingly, F-117s and a Navy F-35 have also been seen with these mirror-like finishes, but the Raptor's coatings appear to be more operationally viable and intricate. Along with these experimental coatings, the Air Force's budget request for fiscal 2023 also mentions efforts to continue to mature the low-drag pylon and tank capabilities as part of the F-22's risk reduction activities. Historically, the F-22 has had the option to equip 2 600-gallon tanks to extend its range. However, outfitting these conventional drop tanks significantly increases the Raptor's radar cross-section, or RCS. And although the tanks can be jettisoned, the underwing connection points and plumbing remain exposed and degrade the F-22's radar signature. The under development low observable drop tanks and pylons, or LDTPs, would be useful in a potential engagement in the Pacific or South China Sea, as distances to and from encounter areas could be long, and forward deployed friendly tankers would be vulnerable or exposed to near-peer enemy fighters. Interestingly, the pylons themselves are said to be equipped with smart rack pneumatic technology that accurately controls the ejection performance along with smooth windswept surface for minimum drag without store. Along with the improved LDTPs, there have been reports of F-22s flying with low observable pods, which could mean infrared search and track or IRST capabilities, advanced electronic warfare features, or some sort of long-range reconnaissance components. The IRST option is intriguing as it can provide Raptors with asymmetric sensing advantages, while still maintaining its unmatched maneuverability. This would potentially augment the Raptor's first look, first shoot, and first kill capability. Furthermore, there's also mention of upgrading the Raptor's navigation systems, radars, and software packages, likely incorporating features found on the F-35. It is not hard to see that by implementing all these upgrades, we could be looking at a Super Raptor flying in the sky soon, if not already. Still, there is a cost to all of this development. The already small Raptor fleet is aging and has some high-time airframes. Along with some of the earliest production F-22s, the Air Force plans on retiring some 33 F-22A airframes, leaving just over 150 operational examples of the Raptor in service. This is a far cry from the 700 plus examples the Air Force initially wanted when the F-22 was chosen to go into production. In fact, the newest Raptor rolled off the assembly line over 11 years ago in 2011 when production ended. As a result, the 33 decommissioned airframes would help keep the remaining fleet airworthy, as they could be cannibalized for spare parts. However, there is an argument to be made that instead of retiring the 33 airframes, they should be brought up to the latest standards and retained, as the Raptor fleet is already small. However, estimates show that it would cost $1.8 billion and take 8 years to upgrade the older airframes. The Air Force has publicly stated that it plans for the F-22 to serve into the 2030s, so it may not make sense to upgrade these older airframes, as they would likely only serve a few years in the upgraded configuration. Getting back to the NGAD Technology Transfer Initiative, are there any other USAF fighters that could benefit from this testing? Let's take a look at two other candidates, the F-35 Lightning and the F-15 Eagle II. Regarding the F-35, there doesn't appear to be any mention of using the Lightning as a testbed for the NGAD program. Why is this? Perhaps because the F-35 itself is in the middle of a large upgrade to the Block 4 standard. The Block 4 standard provides many upgrades, including the ability to carry the B-61 Mod 12 nuclear gravity bomb, along with dual-rail missile racks, which will allow the F-35 to carry up to 6 medium-range AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles internally. Further upgrades also include integration of nation-specific weapons such as the UK's Spear cruise missile and the Meteor long-range air-to-air missile. And finally, the Block 4 upgrade may include improved engines with more fuel efficiency for the F-35 fleet. With all of these planned upgrades and the current production run underway, it's not difficult to see why the F-35 isn't being used as a testbed for the NGAD program. With an operational life expected to run through the 2070s, the Lightning is effectively midway through its production run. This leaves the F-15 Eagle II as a potential testbed. And while the Eagles had an incredible run and the Eagle II helps extend this legendary aircraft's service life, the airframe likely is not a good candidate for a test airframe, especially when you have the F-22 Raptor fleet available, which is also a generation closer in technology to the NGAD fighter. Given all of this, clearly the Raptor is the best choice to test and improve new technologies for the NGAD fighter, and will directly benefit itself from its use as a testbed. The F-22 Raptor is an amazing aircraft. If you ever get to see an F-22 demo at an air show, I highly recommend it, as the jet does things that simply will blow your mind. Here's to making the best even better, the Super Raptor. In today's integrated multi-domain battlefield, information reigns supreme. A pilot's situational awareness and likelihood of success are significantly enhanced by their ability to access real-time data. Indeed, since the advent of aerial warfare, aircraft designers and strategists have been striving to provide pilots with the maximum amount of information possible. In the past, analog or steam gauges were employed for this purpose, but the introduction of the heads-up display or HUD revolutionized the approach. By projecting critical data directly in front of the pilot's line of sight, the HUD minimized the time spent diverting attention away from the external environment to check the gauges. However, as good as the HUD was and is, it required the pilot to be looking straight ahead, something that was not always possible while maneuvering an aircraft in combat. The next evolution in information display technology was the introduction of the helmet-mounted display, or HMD. The HMD integrates the information normally displayed on a HUD directly into the pilot's helmet, which then allows the pilot to view critical flight and mission data without having to divert their gaze to a separate screen or instrument panel. By seeing key information at all times, the pilot's situational awareness is enhanced and allows them to more quickly react to changes in the environment. Additionally, HMD also greatly reduces workload by lowering the amount of time and effort required to search for and interpret data. Another advantage of HMD is in weapons deployment. Case in point, the Joint Mounted Helmet Cueing System, or JHMCS, allows pilots to target and fire the AIM-9X Sidewinder up to 80 degrees off the aircraft's nose, meaning a missile lock can be obtained on an enemy aircraft flying next to the fighter. The JHMCS mounts directly onto the HGU-65 series of helmets, a versatile helmet that has been in service for decades. These helmets are used by virtually all Navy and Air Force aircrew except for the F-35. More on that later. Operating in high-G environments puts extreme stress on the body, which is why fighter pilots need to maintain excellent physical fitness throughout their careers. Still, because of the G-forces a fighter pilot endures over time, many fighter pilots develop long-term neck and back issues. One of the best ways to reduce these potential issues is to lower the weight of the helmet. In fact, a lightweight helmet that is more comfortable, stable, and balanced can go a long way in reducing the potential long-term effects of operating in high-G environments. To this end, testing has already begun in a program known as the Next Generation Fixed Wing Helmets, or NGFWH. The new helmet being tested is being developed by the California-based Lift Airborne Technologies. Known as the AV-2.2 NGFWH helmet, F-22 Raptor pilots from the 301st Fighter Squadron out of Eglin Air Force Base have begun testing the helmet. The new helmet allows for unparalleled mobility, comfort, and visibility in the cockpit. One pilot who flew his F-22 with the new helmet stated that the increased visibility and mobility of the helmet was a massive improvement compared to what he's used to flying with. The new helmets are made of carbon fiber, which results in a 42% lighter weight. The helmet also features vents in the back that increase airflow and has adjustable knobs to customize the fit of the helmet. Another new feature can be found in the helmet's visor, which is made of a polycarbonate single pivot dual visor, which allows the pilot to raise or lower the visor with just one hand. The helmet also contains a hands-free cockpit illumination system, which allows the pilot to toggle the side-mounted lights simply by clenching their jaw. One of the more often overlooked aspects of helmet design are the numerous accessories that can be mounted to modern helmets. Items such as night vision goggles or NVGs used to be manually added and adjusted, which would take aircrew hours to prepare. In the case of NVGs, an AFE airman would use power tools to drill the brackets into the helmet. The new helmets have attachment points and mounting systems built in. This saves aircrew significant amounts of time in preparing helmets for flight operations. Following each test flight, the F-22 pilots provide feedback on any questions or concerns about the helmet that may have arisen throughout the flight. The engineers from the test squadrons then take that feedback and provide it to the manufacturer, so the helmet can be further modified as needed. The next aircraft type scheduled to test these helmets will be the HC-130J and the B-1B Lancer. The choice of the F-22 Raptor to initially test these new helmets is an interesting one. Despite being arguably the best fifth-generation fighter, the F-22 does not make use of a helmet-mounted display system, relying instead on the traditional heads-up display. The reason that F-22 pilots do not make use of an HMD is actually due to space constraints. When the Raptor was being developed, the canopy was shaped to optimize radar cross-section, or RCS, as much as possible. This was done while also meeting the minimum visibility and clearance requirements that were known at the time that the aircraft was being designed. Unfortunately, while the Raptor was being designed, the US had not deployed an HMD system yet. So designing a canopy that could accommodate an HMD system was not part of the requirements during the Raptor's development. We still don't know if the newer helmets will allow for some kind of HMD connection while still fitting within the Raptor's canopy constraints. If and when that happens, I'll make a follow-up video. What about the F-35? Stealth technology had advanced significantly from when the Raptor was designed, and the Lightning's pilots make use of a helmet-mounted display system, or HMDS. The Lightning's HMDS is considered to be the most advanced helmet system in the world, and along with standard helmet display system, the HMDS fully utilizes the advanced avionics and sensor fusion built into the F-35. This system provides the pilot with video imagery in day or night conditions. This is done by making use of multiple cameras mounted around the aircraft and allows the pilot to actually see through the aircraft. This camera system on the Lightning is part of DAS, or a distributed aperture system, and provides 360-degree spherical awareness to Lightning pilots. As a result, the Lightning is the first tactical fighter jet in 50 years to fly without a HUD. Along with the F-35's advanced helmet system, the Lightning's radar is also being upgraded. Designated the AN/APG-85, this new radar is based on a gallium nitride, or GaN, composition. GaN-based radars are smaller, more powerful, and have a wider range of operating frequencies. As a result, the new APG-85 radar should increase the F-35's radar range and resolution dramatically. Some estimates show that the APG-85 will be able to process 10,000 more simultaneous data points than the existing APG-81. This new material composition should also go a long way in supporting dynamic electronic warfare tactics. Additionally, the new radar should allow the F-35 to act as a mini AWACS, or airborne director, making the Lightning an even better drone controller and information node in the ever-increasingly complex battle space. And while the APG-85 radar will provide enhanced detection ranges and resolution, it will also likely boost its offensive capabilities in the form of electronic countermeasures, or ECCM. Today, many combat aircraft, ships, and vehicles incorporate some form of electronic countermeasures, or ECM, to jam or spoof radars. And while the F-35's current APG-81 is itself capable of ECCM, remember those extra operating frequencies mentioned from the GAN composition? Well, those previously unavailable frequencies and the advanced computational power of the APG-85 should allow it to burn through enemy jamming using ECCM, thereby allowing the F-35 to track and lock targets at a much higher rate. This is significant given the rise of near-peer 5th-generation fighters like the Chengdu J-20, which boast some stealth characteristics and electronic countermeasures of their own. In theory, the APG-85 should be able to neutralize some, if not all, of these advantages. The F-35's avionics and helmet system were designed to work together from the ground up, and is one of the many reasons that the Lightning keeps winning fighter procurement competitions while becoming the most produced 5th-generation stealth fighter in the world. The Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor is widely regarded as the ultimate air superiority fighter. With decades of air combat experience fueling its development, this 5th-generation twin-engine stealth marvel is designed to decimate any adversary it encounters. Despite being in service for nearly 20 years, the Raptor remains the standard against which all other fighters are measured. But with a limited production run of less than 180 examples, the F-22 is destined for retirement. The Raptor's dominance is not just its stealth, but its 5th-generation sensor fusion and advanced avionics that allow it to remain unseen, allowing it to dictate when and where to engage a hostile aircraft. With the ability to get first look, first shot, the Raptor typically emerges victorious before the opposing force knows it's even there. Its thrust vectoring engines and aerodynamic design also make it extremely maneuverable, allowing it to hold its own even within visual range dogfights. But no aircraft is invincible, and the Raptor has lost simulated dogfights to older generation airframes in the past. Despite this, the Raptor has consistently demonstrated a staggering kill-to-loss ratio in various exercises, with some reports showing an average of 40-1. A kill ratio of 40-1 means that just 10 Raptors could account for 400 aircraft, a devastating blow to any opposing air force. The Raptor may be so good that it may never see air-to-air combat before its replacement. The 6th-gen, next-generation air dominance or NGAD fighter takes to the skies. But until that moment, the F-22 remains the undisputed king of the skies. Additionally, the F-22 Raptor serves as a prime example of open systems architecture and digital engineering, particularly in its ability to connect with other platforms in support of the Air Force's Joint All-Domain Operations Strategy. Indeed, the F-22 Raptor's capability to gather and disseminate tactical information to allied forces allows for unparalleled situational awareness in battle, and also enhances the survivability of other coalition aircraft. Despite being the world's most dominant fighter, potential adversaries are continuously developing ways to challenge the US and allied air forces in gaining and maintaining air superiority. To counteract this, Lockheed Martin is collaborating with the US Air Force on a comprehensive modernization and sustainment program to enhance the F-22's distinct advantage over existing and potential adversaries. It's not an understatement to say that the F-22's capabilities are crucial in deterring and overcoming threats and ensuring regional and global security in the future. Origins. In many ways, the F-22 can be thought of as the evolution of the incredibly successful F-15 Eagle. In 1981, when the F-15 was still relatively new, the Air Force put forth a requirement for an aircraft to eventually replace both the F-15 and F-16. This was driven by the advancements in Soviet air defenses along with increasing numbers of MiG-29s and Su-27 fighters. In what was called the Advanced Tactical Fighter or ATF program, requirements included the use of advanced materials including composites, high performance with Supercruise, and stealth technology. By 1986, the competition had been narrowed down to two competitors, Lockheed and Northrop. To build such an advanced airplane, Northrop teamed up with McDonnell Douglas, while Lockheed teamed up with Boeing and General Dynamics. This resulted in two designs, Lockheed's YF-22 and Northrop's YF-23. Additionally, General Electric and Pratt & Whitney each developed an engine which would be used in both designs, the engines being designated the YF-120 and YF-119 respectively. And while the two designs both met the competition's requirements of survivability, supercruise, stealth, and ease of maintenance, they each had very different design philosophies. Seen as more conventional, it's not hard to view the YF-22 as an evolution of the F-15. with both utilizing twin vertical tails and horizontal stabilizers. Meanwhile, the YF-23 was a more cutting-edge design with a rhombus-shaped wing and an all-moving V-tail. Performance-wise, the YF-23 design was faster and more stealthy, while the YF-22 was slightly more maneuverable at low speeds due to thrust vectoring. The YF-22 was also generally seen as less of a risk when it came to manufacturing costs, and in 1991, the YF-22 with the Pratt & Whitney engine combination were chosen as the winner of the ATF competition. So why did the YF-22 beat out the YF-23? It's a debate that still goes on today. Essentially, you could say that it came down to public relations. The Lockheed team conducted a demonstration flight of a high angle of attack maneuver, while the Northrop team decided not to do so. And even though the YF-23 could perform the same maneuver, by not demonstrating it, the implication was that the YF-22 could perform the maneuver while the YF-23 could not. Additionally, although not a requirement of the test program, the Lockheed team also conducted a live fire exercise of an AIM-9 Sidewinder and an AIM-120 AMRAAM missile from the internal weapons bay. This was seen as going above and beyond what is necessary for testing and made a favorable impression on the evaluators. Production run. Initially planned for a run of 750 advanced tactical fighters, in 1996, this number was reduced to 648 aircraft. During the 1997 budget cuts, this number was reduced further to 339, and in 2003, the number was reduced further to 277. And while the Air Force advocated that 381 aircraft were necessary to meet its needs, in 2004, this number was reduced again to 183 aircraft to be assigned to 7 combat squadrons. Why so many cutbacks? It's hard to imagine now, but in the early 2000s, the F-22 was seen as an unneeded luxury. With low-intensity wars going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, the need for a super advanced air superiority fighter was extensively debated. This, along with funds being diverted to the F-35 Lightning production lines, led to the final production run of 187 total aircraft. At its peak, the F-22 production line was producing 2 new airplanes a month, while employing 95,000 people in 46 states. At the same time, both Chinese and Russian designs are trying to close the gap on the F-22. As a result, as recently as 2016, studies were being conducted to resume production of the F-22. It was then estimated that to produce an additional 194 F-22s would cost a total of $50 billion, or about $215 million per aircraft. Unfortunately, the Air Force decided not to move forward with this plan. The last Raptor was rolled off the Lockheed assembly line in Georgia in 2011. Given its reduced production run, you could say that a weakness of the Raptor is its limited quantities. However, careful employment of the Raptor fleet can ensure that local air superiority is maintained wherever F-22s are present. And while the Raptor is slated for retirement soon, it has been part of several upgrade programs recently. Most notably, the chrome or mirror-like finishes that have been spotted on several F-22s. These are thought to be some form of next-generation radar-absorbing material or RAM coatings, and have been also spotted on F-35 Lightnings, F-117 Nighthawks, and even the newly revealed B-21 Raider seem to show a lighter coating than normal. And speaking of next generation, the F-22 is thought to be testing several other technologies that will be incorporated into the NGAD fighter. Additionally, in a somewhat similar way to the A-10, rumors of the Raptor's retirement seem to pop up each year, and just like the Warthog, the Raptor keeps proving it has many lives left. In many ways, the Raptor is an excellent example of a deterrent. Enemy commanders likely need to know where F-22s are stationed at all times, and will think twice before contesting airspace where Raptors are present. It's safe to say that the F-22 has become a critical component of the USAF's tactical air power. The Raptor's combination of stealth, aerodynamic performance, and mission systems enable unprecedented air combat capabilities and set the benchmark for its generation. Often overlooked is the Raptor's multi-role capabilities. Along with air-to-air, the F-22 is capable of employing precision ground attack weapons, as well as performing electronic warfare and signals intelligence gathering. It may well end up being that the first 5th-generation fighter ends up being the best. A Chinese high-altitude spy balloon entered U.S. airspace and gained nationwide attention last week. This balloon journeyed across the Pacific, entering Alaskan airspace on January 28th, passing through Canadian airspace on January 30th, and reaching the continental U.S. on January 31st. As it was being monitored over the US, the armed forces decided not to shoot it down due to concerns about falling debris. For several days, the Department of Defense attempted to clarify how a surveillance device belonging to its primary competitor entered and remained in US airspace. Facing growing concerns, the US questioned China about the balloon, leading China to assert ownership, but later claim it as a stray weather balloon. The US then countered that it was actually a surveillance balloon with an onboard instrumentation payload. This led the US military and NASA to investigate wind and debris patterns in order to provide the White House with advice on whether to shoot down the balloon over land or water. The recommendation was to wait until the balloon drifted over the Atlantic, during which time the Air Force used to plan the shoot down. Of the aircraft in the US inventory, the F-22 Raptor was selected as the shooter since it could fly at extremely high altitudes and speeds. More on that in a moment. Regarding the spy balloon, some speculation suggests that it carried advanced ground-penetrating radar instrumentation. This technology would be more effective compared to satellites, as satellites operate at much higher altitudes and have more atmospheric interference to contend with. This theory makes sense since the balloon was observed flying over Montana, where the US Air Force operates ballistic missile fields in a large portion of that state. These fields are part of the 341st Missile Wing at Malmstrom Air Force Base. This base is one of 3 American facilities responsible for housing strategic nuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles. Defense officials also admitted that the balloon's flight path carried it over a number of sensitive sites. After finally drifting over the Atlantic Ocean, the balloon was shot down on February 4th by an F-22 Raptor. A pair of Raptors from the first fighter wing took off, went into full afterburner, and climbed to an altitude of 50,000 feet. To shoot down the balloon, a missile had to be used. This is because the Raptor is prohibited from employing its 20mm gun at altitudes of 50,000 feet or higher. This restriction stems from the fact that the F-22 must actuate a gun door to allow the gun to fire. Instead, an AIM-9X Sidewinder missile was used. At the time of the shootdown, the balloon was at an altitude of between 60 to 65,000 feet. When the lead Raptor took the AIM-9X shot, it was flying at 58,000 feet. The AIM-9X then used its onboard heat-seeking imaging infrared, or IIR, focal plane array seeker to target and track the balloon. The balloon was subsequently destroyed and the wreckage fell into the ocean. Interestingly, the Raptors tasked with the shootdown were given the call signs Frank 01 and Frank 02. These call signs were a tribute to Lieutenant Frank Luke Jr., who was a World War I ace and a Medal of Honor recipient. Over 100 years ago, Frank was given the nickname the Arizona Balloon Buster after he shot down 14 German balloons in just 17 days. Luke Air Force Base in Arizona is also named after him. In the end, the amount of assets to coordinate the shootdown was impressive. According to reports, 4 Navy ships, a Coast Guard C-130, a Navy P-8 Poseidon, an E-3 AWACS, numerous refueling tankers, F-15Cs, and of course, a pair of F-22s were involved. Before and during the shootdown, a significant temporary flight restriction, or TFR, was implemented off the coast of South Carolina. This TFR effectively prohibited all civilian air traffic in a large portion of airspace. The debris and remains of the surveillance balloon are believed to be located in roughly 50 feet of water, and the Navy and Coast Guard are working to retrieve them. Similar balloon activity has been observed over the past few years, however, this balloon stayed over the US for a longer period compared to previous instances. By the early 1980s, the US Air Force found itself facing a quietly growing crisis. For nearly a decade, American fighters like the F-15 Eagle and the F-16 Fighting Falcon had ruled the skies without question. But intelligence reports from across the Atlantic were telling a different story. The Soviet Union wasn't just catching up. They were building fighters that could potentially challenge the very idea of American air dominance. The Su-27 Flanker and the MiG-29 Fulcrum were more than just upgraded Soviet jets. They were fast, agile, and equipped with weapons and radar systems designed specifically to counter the Eagle's strengths. For the first time since Vietnam, the balance of power in the air felt like it could genuinely shift. If the next generation of Soviet aircraft equaled or surpassed American jets, the US wouldn't just lose an edge, it could lose control of entire regions overnight. Now, to Pentagon planners, this wasn't an abstract concern. Control of the sky was the backbone of every U.S. strategy on the ground. Lose it, and everything underneath becomes uncertain. So, the Air Force made a decision that would redefine the next half century. They wouldn't simply build a better fighter. They would build something the enemy couldn't fight at all. This ambitious idea became the Advanced Tactical Fighter Program, or ATF. Launched in 1981, it was framed not as an aircraft competition, but as a race to define the very rules of future air combat. Make no mistake, nothing like this had ever been tried before. In fact, it seemed that the requirements bordered on unrealistic. The Air Force wanted a jet that could supercruise without afterburner, evade radar from every angle, think faster than its pilot, and maneuver in ways no human had ever seen in a dogfight. And this wasn't going to be some sort of one-off X-plane. This jet had to be a production airframe with over 700 examples planned. To turn that impossible vision into reality, two industry super teams stepped into the arena. What followed from this wasn't just a competition, it was literally a clash of titans, with the fate of defense companies hanging in the balance. Former bitter rivals joined forces, pooling their best engineers and boldest ideas to create the ultimate fighter, the one that would claim the crown as king of the skies. After untold delays and nights of intense planning and design sessions, two prototypes emerged. Lockheed, Boeing, and General Dynamics formed one coalition, and they produced the YF-22, while Northrop and McDonnell Douglas answered with the YF-23. The YF-23 looked like something pulled from a classified sketchbook. Sleek, sinister, almost alien. It prioritized deep stealth and long-range performance. The YF-22, on the other hand, looked raw, muscular, and built with the elbows-out mentality of a knife fighter. It wasn't just designed to evade the enemy, it was designed to dominate them at close range if things ever got personal. The competition that followed became one of the most consequential showdowns in modern aviation history. Test pilots pushed their prototypes through stealth trials, simulated dogfights, extreme maneuvers, and radar testing so sensitive that even the test teams didn't know the full results. And in the end, it came down to a hard truth. The YF-23 was faster and stealthier, but the YF-22 was more agile, more flexible, and far better suited for decades of upgrades. And so, on April 23, 1991, just a few months after the first Gulf War, the U.S. Air Force announced its decision. The YF-22 would move forward and become the F-22 Raptor. From there, the aircraft would enter the hands of a legendary group who were tasked to turn the prototype into a production aircraft, the engineers at Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works, and they'd be working alongside Boeing and Pratt & Whitney. The team over at Skunk Works were the same minds behind the U-2 and the SR-71, aircraft built for moments when the future felt uncertain. With the F-22, they actually faced a similar challenge. Build something that would still matter even if the world changed, even if old systems collapsed, even if tomorrow would look nothing like today. When the first prototype took flight in 1997, the message was unmistakable. The Raptor was more than just an iteration after the F-15 Eagle. It was really a clean break from everything before. It supercruised effortlessly and was incredibly maneuverable for its size, thanks to its airframe design and thrust vectoring engines. It climbed like it wanted to outrun gravity itself, and on radar screens, it appeared smaller than a marble, if it appeared at all. And quick side note, why not train radar operators to look for Mach 2 marbles? Comment below if you know. Meanwhile, by 2005, the first operational F-22s entered service. And while there was a planned target of 700 plus airframes, sadly, only 195 would ever be built. That number was shaped by budget battles, politics, and shifting global priorities. But each Raptor represented the pinnacle of American aerospace engineering. But how exactly did the Raptor achieve its goals? Let's take a look at what makes the F-22 successful and unique. If the ATF program was the decision to leap into the future, then the F-22 itself was the moment the future finally arrived. Remember, the Raptor was built on a single uncompromising philosophy. Don't just survive the fight, end it before it begins. At its foundation, of course, was stealth. But the kind of stealth that the F-22 needed wasn't just about avoiding detection. It was about becoming a ghost in a world built to track shadows. Every surface, every line, every angle was shaped so that radar waves would scatter harmlessly away. Even the fasteners were positioned with obsessive precision. It's as if the engineers were trying to leave no trace of the aircraft's existence. But it wasn't just the airframe. It was even down to details like the canopy, a smooth, curved bubble coated with a microscopic layer of indium tin oxide, or ITO. This is a transparent conductive film, but this gold coating isn't just for show. It serves a stealth function by stopping radar energy from bouncing off the pilot's helmet and revealing a human shape. And when the sunlight hits it just right, well, it glows like the visor of a knight guarding the future. Beneath that sleek exterior, the Raptor hides one of the most powerful engines ever fitted to a fighter. Two Pratt & Whitney F-119s generate over 70,000 pounds of thrust combined, and this gives the jet a talent so rare it borders on unfair. Supercruising. That's the ability to fly at supersonic speed with no afterburners. That means no giant fireball behind the jet, no massive heat plume to track with IRST sensors. Just raw, silent, unrelenting speed. In a world where reaction time decides life or death, Supercruise is the difference between choosing the fight and dictating it. But speed and stealth alone aren't what make the Raptor dangerous. It's what happens when it slows down. The F-22's two-dimensional thrust vectoring nozzles can pivot independently, giving it a level of agility that almost looks like cheating. In the right hands, a Raptor can pivot, twist, climb, and swing its nose around with a kind of controlled violence that virtually no fourth-generation jet can touch. It's the sort of maneuverability that once inspired Transformers to turn the Raptor into Starscream. Because if any jet looked like it could change direction with a thought, it was this one. Pilots that fly the Raptor say the aircraft feels less like a machine and more like an extension of instinct itself. Responsive, intuitive, and seemingly wired directly into the mind. Inside the cockpit, that instinct becomes something more. The Raptor's sensors, radar returns, electronic signatures, and infrared feeds all merge into a single, seamless picture. This ability, sensor fusion, doesn't just inform the pilot, it elevates them. Instead of managing systems, they manage the entire battle space, seeing not just where enemies are, but where they will be. At the heart of this fusion is the AN/APG-77 ASA radar. It's a masterpiece of electronic warfare. It can scan vast distances, track multiple targets, jam enemy systems, and share information with other aircraft, all while keeping the Raptor nearly invisible on opposing radars. In the right hands, it turns the aircraft into a conductor, orchestrating a silent symphony of battle space control. Weapons, of course, remain inside internal bays until the moment they're needed. The doors snap open and shut in fractions of a second, preserving the jet's radar signature. A Raptor can fire 6 AMRAAMs and 2 Sidewinders before the enemy even realizes it's being hunted. And it still carries that all-important, super versatile 20mm Vulcan cannon. Even the maintenance systems seem alive. Thousands of embedded sensors monitor stress levels, component wear, and stealth integrity. The aircraft is constantly assessing its own health, a trait that feels almost futuristic but necessary for a machine built to outlast the unpredictable. In the end, every bolt, every circuit, every line of code in the F-22 serves one purpose: control the sky so completely that no enemy even understands what happened. But so far, we've talked about specs and theory. How has the F-22 performed in real-world situations where Gs are being pulled and jet fuel's being burned? By the time the F-22 finally reached operational status in 2005, it was clear that the Air Force hadn't just picked up a new fighter. It had gained the kind of advantage that makes opponents reconsider their plans entirely. Pilots who faced it in training said that it felt like fighting a rumor. You never saw it, you never heard it, you just died. And Exercise Northern Edge 2006 proved that point. In the cold Alaskan air, the Raptor took on waves of advanced aggressor aircraft, simulating some of the best fighters in the world. The result was so lopsided it didn't seem real. 108 simulated kills with 0 losses. Pilots flying against the F-22 said that it felt like being hunted by something that existed one step ahead of them. By the time your radar warned you that something was wrong, it was already too late. But the Raptor's true test wouldn't come until years later. In 2014, as the US-led coalition prepared to strike ISIS targets in Syria, the skies above were thick with radar sites, command nodes, and hostile sensors. The opening wave had to be perfect, fast, clean, and invisible. The kind of mission where you send the aircraft you trust most. The F-22 led the way. Raptors, by this time modified to include air-to-ground munitions, infiltrated Syrian airspace ahead of the main strike packages, eliminating key radar and command centers with surgical precision. Pilots described the missions as eerie. You could see everything happening on your radar display, but the enemy saw nothing in return. The Raptor wasn't there to rack up bomb damage, it was there to peel back the air defenses like a surgeon making that critical first incision. Coalition pilots said it felt like being guided through a battlefield by a hand they never saw. Years passed and the Raptor's role kept evolving. It became an interceptor, a deterrent, a scout, a guardian, always watching where tensions simmer. Then, in 2023, it made headlines again, this time for a very different mission. A Chinese high-altitude surveillance balloon drifted across the United States, triggering a political storm and relentless media coverage. The jet chosen to intercept this balloon wasn't the newest fighter, and it wasn't the cheapest. It was the aircraft the Air Force trusted to finish the job cleanly. A single AIM-9X streaked upward and the balloon fell. The moment was simple, even anticlimactic, but it reminded the world that even decades after its debut, the Raptor remained America's go-to answer when certainty mattered more than showmanship. Today, F-22s stand watch in Alaska, Japan, Hawaii, and across Europe. They deploy quietly, appear suddenly, and leave behind the same message every time. If there's a Raptor overhead, the air is already under American control. Rivals may claim new technologies, new missiles, new sensors, but none have yet changed the fact that the F-22 shapes the airspace around it by its mere presence. But there is, however, a cost to mastery. The maintenance hours are heavy. The stealth coatings demand patience and painstaking precision. Specialized crews and climate-controlled hangars follow the aircraft wherever it goes. And having less than 200 airframes means that every Raptor pilot and maintenance crew are tasked to the limit. But to the Air Force, it's worth every hour and every dollar. Because air dominance isn't just a mission, it's the foundation of everything America does in the sky. And for nearly 20 years, the Raptor has guarded that foundation without losing a single air-to-air fight. But the Raptor doesn't exist in a vacuum. How does it compare to the aircraft that have come after it? We're going to compare the F-22 Raptor to a couple of its contemporaries, the F-35 Lightning and Russia's Su-57 Felon. What you'll find is that we're really comparing three different answers to the same question. What does a nation believe wins the wars of the future? For the United States, the F-22 was the boldest possible answer. Control the sky absolutely, or lose everything beneath it. The Raptor was built to strike first, disappear, and end the fight before the enemy ever understood what was happening. Its strengths reflect a worldview shaped by decades of global operations, long distances, unpredictable threats, and the expectation that American pilots must dominate any airspace they enter. But the Raptor's greatest strength also revealed its greatest weakness. Perfection comes with a price. The aircraft is expensive, complex, and unfortunately rare. Only 195 were built, far below what the Air Force originally planned. When the production line shut down, the US locked itself into a future where the fleet could never grow, only age. And so, to fill that gap, the next American jet took an entirely different path. The F-35 Lightning wasn't designed to outrun or even really outmaneuver the Raptor. It was designed to out-inform everything else. Stealthy, yes. Capable, absolutely. But its true power lies in what it sees and how it shares that information. In the F-35, the pilot becomes the center of a constantly updating web of intelligence. Aircraft, ships, satellites, even ground forces, all feeding into one collective picture. Where you can think of the Raptor as the lone hunter, the Lightning is a battlefield network in motion. Together, these two aircraft form a layered system. The F-22 clears the skies of threats. The F-35 turns that cleared airspace into a command post. One controls the high fight, the other orchestrates everything below it. Then there's the third competitor, Russia's Su-57 Felon. And it's a jet that's shaped by a completely different set of realities. Russia didn't have the resources to chase the Raptor's purity of stealth, so instead it pursued an aircraft that blended maneuverability, speed, and partial stealth into a kind of hybrid predator. On paper, the Su-57 has impressive kinematics and innovative design choices, but in practice the program has struggled with production challenges, engine limitations, and the harsh realities of maintaining advanced aircraft under economic strain. Today, only a handful of Su-27s are in active service, far too few to change the balance of power in the skies. Borrowed stealth, limited avionics, ambitious but inconsistent sensors reflects a nation trying to build for the future while fighting the limits of the present. Now, side by side, these three aircraft reveal a truth far bigger than any jet. The F-22 is the embodiment of pure air dominance, the belief that the first shot decides the war. The F-35 is the belief that information and coordination win modern battles. And the Su-57 is the attempt to stay competitive with limited means and shifting global priorities. In the US Air Force today, the Raptor and Lightning operate as a single force. One delivers the unseen punch, while the other connects the entire battle space, ensuring every ally sees what the enemy cannot hide. It's a kind of ecosystem, balance of speed, stealth, awareness, and adaptability. And in that ecosystem lies the lesson each nation has learned, or is still learning. The future of air combat doesn't go to whoever builds the fastest machine. It goes to whoever builds the best system, and understands how quickly that system can be lost if it isn't updated for whatever comes next. The F-22 Raptor was never meant to be ordinary. It was born from a moment in history when the future felt fragile, when planners didn't know what the next decade would look like. Only that air superiority had to be guaranteed no matter what storms came. And in the years since, the Raptor has become something more than the sum of its parts. It became the standard everyone else chases. Every fifth generation fighter that followed, the F-35, the British Tempest, Japan's GCAP, carries lessons first proven in the Raptor. Engineers learned how to merge stealth with raw power, how to fuse sensors into a single living picture, and how to give pilots the kind of awareness that can reshape the outcome of a conflict before it even begins. The Raptor didn't just dominate the skies, it rewrote the textbook on how a fighter should think. But true legacies don't freeze in time, they echo. And today, that echo is shaping the Next Generation Air Dominance Program, or NGAD. The Air Force's leap into 6th generation air combat. Now, NGAD isn't a single aircraft, it's actually a family of systems. Adaptive engines, autonomous wingmen, AI-assisted decision-making, and networks that are designed to survive in a world where old assumptions may just collapse overnight. And as we've learned this year, the fighter component of the NGAD is now designated the F-47. So in that sense, you can think of the NGAD as a spiritual continuation of the F-22. It's the idea that air superiority isn't something you inherit, it's something you prepare for, learn for, and build for even when the future is uncertain. Especially when it's uncertain. The Raptor taught the Air Force that information could be as powerful as speed, that invisibility could be more decisive than firepower, that control of the sky is the foundation upon which everything else stands. And those lessons remain urgent. Because guess what? The world is shifting again. New threats, new technologies, new doctrines. The same forces that once created the ATF program are returning. Rival nations building advanced fighters, stealth drones, and long-range sensors designed to erode America's traditional strengths. The questions that the Raptor answered decades ago are now resurfacing in new forms. Yet, amid all that change, the F-22 remains the quiet constant. It still deploys where tensions rise. It still guards the edges of American airspace. It still shapes the battle spaces simply by being present. No other aircraft has matched the totality of its dominance, and perhaps none will. Because the Raptor wasn't built to fit into a system. It became the system, and that may be its most enduring legacy. Not the kill ratios, not the stealth metrics, not even the unmatched maneuverability. The Raptor's legacy is really an idea that a single machine made in a moment of uncertainty can help stabilize the world around it and guide the architects of the next era toward what must be preserved when everything else changes. So when an F-22 rises through the clouds and melts into the sunlight, it's not just metal and fire. It's a flying philosophy made real. That knowledge, preparation, and mastery of the unseen decide the fate of the sky long before the first shot is fired. And in that disappearing silhouette, you can see the past, the present, and the first hints of the future, all flying in formation. The first, fifth-generation fighter, the F-22 was nothing short of a quantum leap in fighter aircraft design when it began patrolling the skies. With thrust-vectoring engines that allow for maneuvers that virtually no other aircraft can make, the ability to fly supersonic without afterburner, better known as Supercruise, a low observability or stealth profile, and an air-to-air radar that was a generation ahead of any fighter aircraft when it debuted. The Raptor was and is king of the air. And before we start the balloon jokes, remember that the best weapon systems are deterrents. The F-22 has probably prevented many air-to-air engagements merely by its presence in an area. Over its near 2 decades of service life, the Raptor has added air-to-ground capabilities and is even being used as a testbed for its eventual successor. More on that later. However, its time is drawing near. Here are 5 reasons why. Number 5. Cost. The F-22 Raptor has been one of the most expensive fighter jets in history, with a unit cost of approximately $150 million. And if you factor in research and development costs, that number jumps to $330 million. Part of this high price tag was due to the fact that the initial order of some 700 fighters eventually was reduced to below 200 units. There are several reasons for this drastic drop in procurement numbers, one of them being that at the time, in the late 2000s, the US was fighting mostly low-intensity wars, and politicians felt that the need for a super advanced air-to-air fighter simply wasn't needed. On top of this, the F-22 was deemed too advanced to export to allied countries, so when the USAF stopped placing orders, the production run ended. Having an out-of-production fighter becomes increasingly expensive to operate and maintain the more time passes from the end of the production run. The last F-22 rolled off the production line in Marietta, Georgia in 2011, over 12 years ago. Number 4. Age. Given the fact that the newest F-22 is 12 years old, along with the relatively low numbers of aircraft produced, has resulted in F-22 airframes being worked hard for more than a decade. As they get older, they require more maintenance, and the F-22 is always expensive to maintain to begin with. Aside from the airframe's geometry, the Raptor relies on the use of radar-absorbing materials or RAM coatings. These coatings degrade during flight operations in various weather conditions, so they need to be manually reapplied to the aircraft. As the first 5th-generation fighter, the Raptor led the way in RAM coatings and their applications. However, stealth technology has advanced considerably since the Raptor was designed, with newer and more efficient methods having been developed since then. While all these methods and applications are highly classified, it is generally agreed that the F-35's coatings are more durable and less expensive to apply as compared to the F-22. Along with more thorough and necessary applications of RAM coatings required as the F-22 ages, the other ever-increasing factor is cost per flight hour. The Raptor's engines and structural components come from a somewhat finite pool of resources, which results in the increasing cost per flight hour year over year. The current cost per flight hour of an F-22 is about $60,000. Number 3. Operational requirements. While the F-22 has added air-to-ground capabilities since it first entered service, the Raptor was never meant to be a fully multi-role fighter. However, as fighters become more expensive to operate and qualified pilots more difficult to train and retain, air forces all over the world are looking to multi-role aircraft to fill their defensive needs. An aircraft which can perform air-to-air missions, suppression of enemy air defenses or SEAD, standoff attacks with cruise or even hypersonic missiles, and potentially even close air support are all emerging requirements as we head into the mid-21st century. Perhaps the best 4th-generation example of this is the Navy's Super Hornet, which can perform all of the aforementioned missions and even serve as an air-to-air refueling tanker. And while air-to-air refueling is likely not a requirement for 6th-generation fighters, the ability to control large amounts of near-autonomous drones is. Future Tier 1 engagements will almost certainly involve AI-powered drones working in tandem with a manned host fighter. The avionics, sensor fusion, and raw computing power required to make this a reality are a generational leap ahead of what the F-22 can do in this department. One such enabling technology are adaptive engines, which optimize both high thrust and high efficiency modes on demand as operational circumstances warrant. Adaptive engines also run much cooler than today's high-performance fighter engines, which in turn allow for more electrical power generation. This increased electrical power output is critical to run the supercomputers, that will power tomorrow's fighters. The cost and time to adapt these technologies to the Raptor would simply be cost prohibitive. Number 2. Other priorities. If you are a regular viewer of this channel, then it's probably a safe bet to say that you are a fan of fighter planes. And while you and I would love to see even more fighters in the USAF inventory, the reality is that like any organization, the Air Force is working within a limited budget. The rise and increasing sophistication of near-peer adversaries means that threat areas such as cybersecurity and space operations are requiring a larger investment in both money and personnel. The Space Force was recently formed to address this very topic. In order to keep improving in these areas, the Air Force has had to make the difficult decision to begin phasing out the out-of-production F-22. Number 1. Future plans. Along with developing cybersecurity and space operations, the Air Force is already busy working on both the Next Generation Air Dominance or NGAD fighter and the B-21 Raider. The Air Force has released some concept images of the NGAD fighter, and I've done a video on what we know so far, along with a 3D model on my best guesses as to what the NGAD fighter would look like and how it would perform. I'll leave links to that video in the description below. The NGAD and Raider represent cutting-edge technologies along with generation-defining features and capabilities. Make no mistake, the Raptor will serve up until the point that the NGAD fighter can take its place as the premier air dominance fighter. But we have to acknowledge that the F-22's days are numbered. One sign of this are chrome or mirror-like coated Raptors that have been spotted recently. These are likely being used as testbeds for the NGAD and B-21 Raider programs. Staying on the cutting edge is an unforgiving business, and we can't allow our emotional attachments to airframes to cloud our decisions. As Marine Corps General Keith B. McCutcheon, let me know if I pronounced that right, so succinctly stated, quote, "Aviation is a dynamic profession. The rate of obsolescence of equipment is high, and new aircraft have to be placed in inventory periodically in order to stay abreast of the requirements of modern war." End quote. In the world of military aviation, the stakes don't get much higher than the Next Generation Air Dominance Contract, or NGAD. This multi-billion-dollar deal was meant to secure the U.S. Air Force's air superiority well into the 21st century, with a new cutting-edge fighter, which we now know to be the F-47. After over a decade of competition, Boeing, with its sleek, futuristic design, walked away with the win. But some experts claimed that the DoD gave Boeing the W to spread out the defense contracts. More on that later. For Lockheed, this was a gut punch. The maker of the F-35 and F-22, two of the most advanced fighters ever created, lost out to Boeing's fresh design. And while Boeing now holds the crown, Lockheed isn't backing down. This loss isn't the end, it's the beginning of something new. But why is the NGAD so critical? It's not just about the next fighter, it's about dominating the skies. The F-47, Boeing's proposed 6th generation fighter, is designed to outclass everything else in the air. Faster, stealthier, and packed with cutting-edge technology, like artificial intelligence and autonomous capabilities. It's rumored to even be able to control swarms of drones, keeping the F-47 safe while the drones go ahead and do the dirty work. The idea here is to create a fighter that not only defends airspace, but anticipates and outsmarts its enemies in ways current tech can't. Now, in an era of emerging threats ranging from highly advanced adversaries like China and Russia, the NGAD is a lot more than just a fighter. It's a system of systems that represents the future of air combat, where AI-powered learning, along with automatic adaptive decision-making, could reshape the battlefield in real time. For Lockheed, losing the NGAD contract was a hard blow, but it wasn't a knockout. However, the company now finds itself in a race against time, forced to innovate rapidly. But here's the catch. Lockheed already has the tools and the testbeds in the form of two of the most formidable 5th generation fighters on the planet. Yes, the F-35 Lightning and the F-22 Raptor. What they need to do now is push these plans beyond their original designs, taking lessons learned from their own internal NGAD research and bolting them onto their existing platforms. It's a challenge, no doubt, but it's also a unique opportunity to unlock the full potential of these legacy fighters and transform them into something even greater. The kind of fighter that can not only compete with the F-47, but could it maybe even defeat it? So what exactly did Lockheed learn from their NGAD research? And how does it give new life to their legacy fighters? Let's take a look at a fascinating chapter in Lockheed's story, one that you may not have heard of before. To get ahead of the game and stay at the cutting edge of stealth technology, Lockheed wasn't just a bystander in the NGAD competition. No, they tested some radical new concepts on the F-35, the F-22, and even on the wobbling goblin, the F-117 Nighthawk. One of the most obvious tests were very visible, literally in the form of chrome coatings. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? But these chrome-coated fighters are real, and they're more than just flashy paint jobs. Lockheed used these shiny testbeds to explore new technologies for the next generation fighter. Technologies that could be the game changer for radar evasion, infrared reduction, and advanced stealth testing. You see, stealth technology has always been the cornerstone of advanced fighters, but as enemy radar and infrared systems improve, maintaining invisibility or even low observability in the skies is a moving target. Lockheed's chrome experiments were all about staying ahead of that curve by making the jets literally invisible to optical sensors. Now, we're going to take a bit of a deeper dive here. In theory, the chrome coating could confuse radar systems by creating a surface that reflects and scatters electromagnetic waves in unexpected and classified ways. But that's not all. These chrome-coated fighters also help to reduce the aircraft's infrared or heat signature, making them harder to detect by nosy IRST sensors and even heat-seeking missiles. It's a 1-2 punch against multiple detection methods. And while these jets were intended as testbeds for Lockheed's NGAD research, the results of these experiments could be just as crucial to the F-35 and F-22, unlocking even more advanced stealth capabilities for today's fighters. Imagine this, a fighter jet so sleek, so stealthy, that it can virtually disappear from enemy radar and heat sensors, all while delivering unmatched firepower. That's the potential of Lockheed's cutting-edge experiments. Now imagine that with 1,000 fighters available. Lockheed wasn't just testing technology for the next-gen fighter, they're testing on how to keep these current jets alive in the future. So at the end of the day, these chrome-coated testbeds weren't just about looking cool. They were the beginning of something much bigger. And while they might not be the future of stealth in itself, the lessons learned here are paving the way for next-generation upgrades to both the F-35 and F-22. But how exactly do these shiny testbeds give new life to Lockheed's older platforms? And what's next for these fighters? Let's dive into the upgrades Lockheed is planning and see how they're using what they learned from these experiments to push their legacy fighters into a whole new era. Now that we've seen how Lockheed, who, remember, has the Skunk Works as part of their arsenal, is pushing the boundaries of stealth, let's talk about the next big leap. 5th generation plus, or as it's being called, Gen 5.5. So what exactly does this mean? To understand Gen 5.5, we need to look at the evolution of fighter aircraft. 5th generation fighters, like the F-35 and F-22, as you know, are already packed with cutting-edge technology, stealth, Supercruise in the case of the Raptor, advanced avionics, and sensor fusion. But Gen 5.5 will take these capabilities and push them even further, introducing upgrades that make these jets faster, more efficient, and even stealthier. And most importantly, all this will be done without starting over from scratch. So, what's changing? Let's break it down. Number 1, advanced stealth coatings. We've already seen how chrome coatings help improve radar evasion, but the next step is pushing this technology even further. Lockheed is integrating new next-gen coatings that make the F-35 and F-22 invisible to a wider range of radar frequencies and reduce the aircraft's infrared signature even more. This This is probably similar to the coatings that are going to be used on the B-21 Raider, another 6th generation aircraft. The goal here is to create a fighter that can outmaneuver detection systems across multiple spectrums, keeping it hidden when it counts the most. They say in aviation, speed is life, and just like adding that turbo to your favorite car makes it go faster, well, these new coatings will breathe new life and survivability into the Lightning and Raptor. Number 2, advanced engines. Next up, let's talk adaptive engine technology. Lockheed is incorporating this cutting-edge tech into their jets to give them massive performance boosts. We've already seen engine upgrades underway for the F-35's current power plant in the form of the Pratt & Whitney F-135 engine. However, both Pratt & Whitney and General Electric have been working on a new engine technology known as adaptive cycle engines. With adaptive engines, these fighters will have the ability to optimize performance based on the mission. So, what exactly do adaptive engines do? Well, think of it as an automatic transmission for your fighter jet. The adaptive engine will automatically give you more range when needed, higher speeds when necessary, and better fuel efficiency overall. These engines do this in many ways, one of which is automatically adjusting the airflow to suit different flight conditions, making the F-35 and possibly even the F-22 more versatile than ever. Number 3, and this one is huge, modified airframe geometry. By reshaping or modifying parts of the aircraft's design, like its wings and fuselage, Lockheed is making these jets more aerodynamic and improving their stealth capabilities. These modifications reduce radar cross-section and allow the jets to perform better at higher speeds and altitudes. It's all about squeezing more performance from that same airframe without having to build a brand new jet from the ground up. Could we even see a Mach 2 F-35? Only time will tell, but wouldn't that be cool? So where does all this leave us? Lockheed claims that with these upgrades, the F-35 and F-22 can deliver 80% of the capabilities of a 6th generation fighter like Boeing's F-47 at half the cost. That's a bold statement. But when you consider that Lockheed already has over 1,000 F-35s in service and has by far and away the most experience with 5th generation stealth in the world, well, then this approach makes sense. Instead of building a new fighter from scratch, an expensive and time-consuming process, they're using, or modifying if you will, current platforms and making them even better. Maybe the Lightning will become the Honda Civic of generation 5.5. At the end of the day, it's a smart, cost-effective way to stay ahead of the curve while still maintaining the US Air Force's dominance in the skies. So, in essence, Gen 5.5 takes the core strengths of the F-35 and F-22 and enhances them, making them more lethal, more efficient, and more stealthy than ever. By doing this, Lockheed is banking on turning their legacy fighters into the next generation of warplanes, without the need for a blank slate. It's an upgrade that could reshape air combat as we know it. And remember, those jets are flying today, right now, all over the world. But the big question now is, will these upgraded fighters be enough to compete with Boeing's F-47? Let's break down how they stack up in the next section. Lockheed's Gen 5.5 strategy is all about upgrading what's already in service. The F-35 and F-22 have proven their worth on the battlefield, but now the question is, can they evolve into something even better? Let's take a deeper look at the advantages and limitations of upgrading these existing fighters. Advantage 1, cost efficiency, half the price of a new aircraft. It's no secret, one of the biggest advantages here is cost efficiency. Lockheed's claim of delivering 80% of 6th generation capabilities at half the cost of a completely new fighter is a game changer, if they can pull it off. Developing a new aircraft from scratch, like Boeing's F-47, takes years of research, development, and it's a massive investment. Not to mention, how long will it take to get a big number of F-47s in service so that they can be deployed and ready? But by upgrading existing platforms, Lockheed can make incremental yet powerful improvements at a fraction of the price. This is especially important given the already 1,000 plus F-35s in service. The cost savings here aren't just theoretical. They're real, tangible benefits that can be reinvested in other critical areas like training, infrastructure, and more immediate operational needs. And building on this point is advantage 2. We have these jets now. Another major advantage is the immediate availability of these fighters. Lockheed doesn't need to wait for an entirely new aircraft to come off the production line and for all the bugs to get worked out. With over 1,000 F-35s already in service, the US military, allies, and partners around the world already have these jets in their arsenal. By upgrading them, Lockheed can deploy these enhanced fighters faster, giving them a combat-ready edge right now. And as we've seen, in the fast-paced world of modern warfare, speed is critical. These upgrades mean that Lockheed's jets can stay ahead of emerging threats without waiting for a brand new aircraft to roll off the assembly line and work out all those bugs in the software as well as the overall design. Advantage number 3, proven reliability of established platforms. It hasn't always been easy, but after much trial and error, the proven reliability of the F-35 and F-22 platforms is another huge benefit. These aircraft are battle tested and their performance has already been validated under some of the most demanding conditions. Lockheed is building on a solid foundation here, modifying and enhancing an airframe that's already delivered countless successful missions and flight hours. This means that the risk is significantly lower than a completely new design. The systems, controls, and operations are already familiar to the pilots, maintenance crews, and support staff. This will ensure that upgrades are integrated smoothly without major disruptions. We've talked about the pros, now let's go into the cons. What are the limitations of upgrading these existing fighters? Number 1, limited increase in range compared to the F-47. While adaptive engine technology will improve fuel efficiency and performance, it's still unlikely that the F-35 or F-22 can match the range of the larger F-47. After all, the F-47's clean sheet design allows it to be larger with more room for fuel and systems, giving it a natural advantage in endurance and operational range. While the F-35's new engines will improve fuel efficiency, a larger airframe is still the best solution for long-range operations, something that the F-47 is designed from the ground up to excel at. And remember, we aren't even sure if adaptive engines will be made available to the F-22, so its range could be capped at where it is today. Number 2, structural constraints of existing airframes. Another limitation is the actual physical constraints of the existing airframes. The F-35 and F-22 were designed with specific parameters in mind: weight, aerodynamics, and payload. While they're incredibly versatile, at the end of the day there are limits to how much you can modify the airframe before compromising performance. You couldn't put a 2,000 horsepower V8 into a Honda Civic, could you? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, the airframes for the Lightning and the Raptor were never meant to accommodate the kind of upgrades that a clean sheet 6th generation fighter like the F-47 could handle. Said differently, Lockheed's modifications will definitely enhance performance, but at the end of the day, there's just a ceiling to what can be achieved with the current airframes. Number 3, potential technology integration challenges. Finally, there are potential challenges in technology integration. As Lockheed adds new systems, advanced avionics, new sensors, and adaptive engines, there's always a risk of compatibility issues with existing systems. Software and hardware integration can be complex, especially when trying to mesh brand new tech with established platforms. As a quick example, take a look at how long the Technology Refresh 3 or TR3 upgrades have taken for the F-35. Some people speculate that this was one of the reasons Boeing was awarded the F-47 contract. What are your thoughts on that? I believe Lockheed's engineering teams are top tier, some of the best in the world, but integrating all these advanced features seamlessly into legacy fighters is no small feat. Still, despite these challenges, the advantages of upgrading existing fighters, cost efficiency, immediate availability, and proven reliability make this approach a compelling choice. While there are limitations, Lockheed is pressing ahead and making it work, turning their battle-tested platforms into some of the most advanced aircraft in the world. As we've seen, Lockheed's Gen 5.5 upgrades are designed to push the F-35 and F-22 into the next generation of air combat. But here's the catch. Boeing's F-47, the so-called sixth-generation fighter, might take a decade or more to become fully operational. Now, a decade in the world of military aviation is a lifetime. The F-47 is still in the concept and design phase, and while it holds incredible potential, it will take years of testing, development, and production before it's ready for deployment. So what do we do in the meantime? This is where upgrading existing fighters becomes not just a smart move, it becomes a necessity. As the iconic saying goes, you go to war with the army, or in this case, the aircraft you have. Right now, the US and its allies have over 1,000 F-35s and over 150 F-22s in service. Fighters that are already proven and capable, ready to be taken to the next level. In a world where threats are evolving rapidly, waiting for a new, untested fighter like the F-47 to become operational could leave critical gaps in air superiority. Lockheed's upgraded F-35s and F-22s can fill that gap today and in the foreseeable future by reinforcing the US and its allies' ability to dominate the skies now, not years from now. Lockheed's Gen 5.5 fighters aren't just a cost-effective solution, they're really a strategic necessity. By enhancing the fighters we already have, we ensure that air superiority doesn't slip through our fingers while we're waiting for the F-47 to become a reality. In essence, the upgraded F-35 and F-22 become the bridge to the future of air combat, ensuring that we stay ahead of our adversaries right now. At the end of the day, the urgency is clear. Air superiority can't wait for a decade-long development cycle. Lockheed's upgrades ensure that while we wait for the next generation fighter to take shape, the US and its allies remain dominant in the skies. But with tensions rising globally and the timeline for Boeing's F-47 still a long road ahead, can Lockheed's quicker, cheaper upgrades truly hold the line against emerging threats? Now that we've explored the timeline and urgency behind Lockheed's Gen 5.5 upgrades, let's take a closer look at how these upgraded fighters will impact tactical combat strategy on a global scale. Now, at the heart of every military operation is the tactical advantage. By upgrading the F-35s and F-22s to Gen 5.5, we enhance their already powerful capabilities and we shift the dynamics of air combat into our favor. Let's talk tactical combat strategy. In modern air combat, strategy and tactics evolve with technology. Gen 5.5 upgrades allow Lockheed's fighters to perform in ways that were previously unimaginable or unobtainable. The new advanced stealth coatings and improved avionics will provide superior situational awareness, precision targeting, and threat detection. These enhancements allow pilots to take on multiple roles, from dogfighting at close range to engaging enemy aircraft from long distances without ever being detected. The advanced sensor fusion on these jets means that pilots can stay ahead of adversaries, integrating data from multiple sources and making real-time tactical decisions. This gives them the edge in dynamic, high-stakes combat environments that they are likely to encounter. Now, whether facing hostile air defenses, enemy interceptors, or advanced anti-aircraft systems, these upgraded jets will offer a tactical advantage in any theater, making them invaluable assets for both offense and defense. Next, let's look at stealth and combat radius effectiveness. In modern warfare, the ability to remain undetected is critical. Thanks to the advanced stealth coatings and the planned modifications to airframe geometry, Gen 5.5 fighters can operate deeper in enemy territory, all while maintaining a low radar cross-section and being low observable. With these upgrades, they'll extend the aircraft's capability to penetrate contested airspace with even greater efficiency, giving pilots a clearer path to strike targets without risking exposure. And while range remains a limitation compared to planned larger fighters like the F-47, the adaptive engine technology will extend the F-35's and maybe F-22's range, allowing them to cover more ground without sacrificing stealth or performance. So whether striking deep into enemy territory or patrolling vast regions like the South China Sea or Eastern Europe, these upgraded fighters will extend operational reach, all while staying virtually invisible to enemy radar. Now let's look at what this means on a global scale, looking at the balance between the US versus China and Russia. On a global scale, the upgraded Gen 5.5 fighters represent a critical advantage in maintaining air superiority, especially in the face of growing challenges from China and Russia. Both China and Russia have invested heavily in developing their own stealth fighters, like China's J-20 and Russia's Su-57. These aircraft are formidable, but Lockheed's Gen 5.5 upgrades keep the US ahead of the game by providing an increased tactical edge in terms of stealth, performance, and multi-role capabilities. With the ability to operate in contested airspace, maintain superior stealth, and respond quickly to emerging threats, the US and its allies maintain their position as the leader in air combat. Ultimately, Lockheed's Gen 5.5 upgrades will ensure that the US military can not only match China and Russia's advances, but stay ahead, keeping air superiority firmly in American hands. So, as the balance of global military aviation shifts, we really have to ask ourselves, can Lockheed's upgraded F-35s and F-22s be enough to stay ahead of the competition? These enhanced capabilities, the US is positioning itself and her allies to dominate the skies for years to come. But there's one more critical question left to answer. We've looked at the mods and we've looked at the plans and the potential implications. Now it's time to answer the most important question of all. Can Lockheed's upgraded F-35s really compete against Boeing's F-47? After all, the F-47 is built from the ground up to be the US Air Force's next generation fighter. But how will the Gen 5.5 F-35 really measure up? Let's break it down. Number 1, stealth. The F-47 is designed to be the next evolution of stealth technology, incorporating cutting-edge radar-evading features. It's built to be nearly invisible to the most advanced radar systems, and given its size, it can carry even more advanced stealth technologies that we don't even know about, including more efficient radar-absorbing coatings and shapes designed to evade detection from every angle. Also, remember that everything we've learned from both the F-22 and F-35's stealth capabilities will be applied to the F-47, giving it a great advantage. But the upgraded F-35 Gen 5.5 isn't slouching when it comes to stealth. Lockheed's advanced stealth coatings and modified airframe geometry will give the F-35 superior low observable characteristics that can penetrate contested airspace undetected. And while the F-47 may have an edge in terms of size and advanced stealth coatings, the F-35's stealth features like sensor fusion and advanced radar jamming technology give it a fighting chance in environments where the enemy is armed with the latest detection technology. Next up is speed and agility. The F-47 is designed for long-range missions, and with its larger airframe, it's built for speed and high-altitude performance. Thanks to its cutting-edge engines, it can likely reach Supercruise speeds, flying supersonic without the need for afterburner, which preserves fuel and keeps it undetected at long distances. The F-35 Gen 5.5, on the other hand, may not have the sheer top-end speed of the F-47, but it compensates with exceptional agility and maneuverability. One of the requirements for the F-35 was to excel in dogfighting and close-range combat when needed, the kind of battles where quick turns and rapid response matters the most. With its advanced avionics, highly responsive controls, and smaller size, along with integrated weapon systems, the F-35 is perfectly built for engaging enemies in more confined, dynamic scenarios. Now let's talk about range and payload. Of course, the F-47 will have a clear advantage here, giving its larger size and new efficient engines. It's designed to carry heavier payloads, including a larger mix of bombs and missiles, and with a longer combat radius. It can strike targets far beyond the reach of smaller fighters. This makes the F-47 a prime candidate for deep strike missions and force projection. However, the F-35 Gen 5.5 can hold its own, with its adaptable internal weapons bays as well as the ability to carry additional weapons externally, albeit not as stealthy then. The F-35 has plenty of payload options. And as we've mentioned, Lockheed's also upgrading the engines to provide a slightly improved range. Remember, the F-35's versatility comes from its multi-role capabilities. It can execute precision strikes in anti-air operations or in close air support, and still excel in air superiority missions. Now, when it comes to technological innovation, the F-47 is an entirely new aircraft built with state-of-the-art avionics, AI-driven sensors, and autonomous capabilities. It's designed to work as a highly integrated system with uncrewed drones, making it a powerful force multiplier. And its cutting-edge AI systems can analyze and make decisions faster than any human pilot could, effectively putting it on the front lines of networked warfare. Now, that's not to say that the F-35 also doesn't have some incredible technology of its own. Its sensor fusion is one of the most advanced in the world, allowing the pilot to have a 360-degree view of the battlefield. And the F-35's avionics enable it to detect threats at longer ranges than many 5th-gen fighters, giving the pilot ample time to respond and engage. Plus, its integration with unmanned platforms, aka drones, and network warfare capabilities means that the F-35 is more than just a fighter, it's a command node in a larger integrated combat system. Can Lockheed's upgraded F-35 truly compete with Boeing's F-47? Well, the answer really depends on the mission. The F-47 has advantages in terms of range, payload, and technological innovation, but the F-35 still holds its own with exceptional agility, advanced stealth, and multi-role design that makes it a formidable adversary on the battlefield. At the end of the day, both jets are powerful, but in different ways. And there's one more measurement we haven't looked at yet: numbers. Given the over 1,000 examples of the F-35 that have already been built, it's safe to say that the F-47 will be produced in much smaller numbers. Us photographers have a saying: the best camera is the one you have with you, and this may prove to be true for the F-35. Sometimes the jet you have ready for a mission is the best jet. Given its likely small numbers, the F-47 won't be able to be everywhere at once, but there sure are a lot of lightnings. Ultimately, Lockheed's Gen 5.5 upgrades will ensure that the F-35 and F-22 to some extent remain relevant in the next generation of air combat. And while Boeing's F-47 may eventually offer exciting new technologies, the F-35 and F-22 bring a wealth of experience, battle-tested capabilities, and flexibility that ensures its place as true air superiority platforms for years to come. With both these fighters standing toe-to-toe, the battle for air dominance will continue. But it's clear, Lockheed's legacy fighters, upgraded and enhanced, are far from obsolete. Now, as we've seen, Lockheed's Gen 5.5 upgrades to the F-35 and F-22 are not just about improving existing technology. They're really about securing the future of air dominance. These enhancements will ensure that the US and its allies stay ahead of the curve in an era where air superiority is constantly challenged by new threats and new technologies. To bring it all the way back to the beginning, think of it like tuning your car or upgrading your PC. You don't need a whole new machine. You just need the right upgrades to keep it performing at the highest level. And that's exactly what Lockheed is doing. Their F-35 and F-22 aren't just getting an upgrade, they're really getting a second life. A chance to keep pushing the boundaries of air combat with advanced stealth, superior agility, and cutting-edge technology. And really, these upgrades are about more than just performance. They're about staying ahead of the competition and ensuring that Lockheed's fighters remain vital tools in securing the skies for the next generation as it gets ready. And while Boeing's F-47 is an impressive machine, Lockheed's legacy fighters, refined and enhanced, are more than capable of holding the line until the 47 arrives in enough numbers to hold their own. Famous pilot once said, "So you want to know who the best is? Well, when it comes to aircraft, if you want to know who the best is, don't look at the scorecard. Look at who everyone else is trying to beat or measure up against. Every stealth jet that's come after the F-22, whether it's China's J-20, Russia's Su-57, or even the USAF's own F-35 Lightning, is measured against one standard: the Raptor. When you're the baseline for everyone else's best, that means you're not just a fighter, you're a legend. This was the world's first true 5th generation air superiority jet, and it didn't just push the envelope, it shredded it. Stealth, speed, agility, and sheer brutality, all fused into one unholy machine of skyborne dominance. It's Jack Dempsey in a low, observable airframe. It's Ali dancing through radar like a ghost. It's Mike Tyson in Afterburner, coming at you with a first-round knockout you never saw coming. In close-range dogfights, the Raptor's thrust vectoring turns the law of physics into mere suggestions. It can pivot, slide, and flip its nose toward a target like it's possessed, leaving enemy pilots wondering how they got locked up while still pulling G's in the opposite direction. But here's the real trick. It doesn't need to get close. With low observable stealth and an arsenal of long-range AIM-120 AMRAAMs and now AIM-260 missiles, we're talking 100 plus miles. The Raptor can delete threats before they even know it's there. Remember, part of a missile's range is determined by the aircraft firing it. In other words, if a launching aircraft can fly high and fast, then the missile will simply go that much farther. Now, here's the neat part. Not only can the F-22 fly at speeds of over Mach 2, it can supercruise. What does that mean? Well, the Raptor is one of a very few combat aircraft that can go supersonic without having to use its afterburners. On top of all this, the F-22 keeps its weapons internally, meaning that it's almost always clean or slick. Compare this to 4th gen fighters, which have to hang all their weapons on racks off the wings and fuselage. And that's a lot of drag. Since the F-22 is usually flying clean, well, then this means that the missiles shot by the Raptor will travel farther and faster in most flight regimes. It's like a heavyweight champ that can also snipe from a rooftop. That's not just air superiority, that's air supremacy. And with the addition of that AIM-260, America's newest long-range air-to-air missile, the Raptor just leveled up again. You see, the AIM-260 has at least double the range of the AIM-120 that it's replacing. Reports are that the 260's range is over 100 miles, making it the modern-day AIM-54 Phoenix missile. Remember that saying, reach out and touch someone? Yeah. That someone just lost airspeed, altitude, and life expectancy. The bottom line is this: the Raptor was designed to own the skies, and 2 decades later, no one's taken that title away. But here's the part they don't tell you in press releases. The Raptor wasn't just built to fight, it was built to teach. Behind closed doors, deep in classified test ranges and hidden airstrips, the F-22 has been quietly evolving, not just as a fighter, but as a flying laboratory for what comes next. You see, around 2018, something curious started happening. Select F-22s were loaded with experimental systems, odd antenna arrays, data links, strange payloads, and even chrome coatings that don't match anything on record. And the pilots, they weren't just flying, they were testing. Testing what? Officially, no comment. Unofficially, many believe those Raptors were helping shape a ghost, a future fighter with no name at the time, a fighter that would later be revealed as the F-47. Think about it. If you're designing the next generation of air dominance, wouldn't you want to start with the most dominant aircraft you already have? By using proven systems from the Raptor, engines, flight controls, sensor fusion, even stealth coatings, the Air Force didn't have to start from scratch. They started from superiority. That means the F-22 isn't just the predecessor to the F-47. It might be the reason the F-47 exists at all. And if that's true, then retiring the Raptor isn't just retiring a fighter. It's unplugging the very machine that's feeding the next generation the data it needs to fly, fight, and win. This is where the stakes get real. Because while the Pentagon talks about budgets, force structure, and transitioning to a hybrid air wing, enemies like China and Russia are watching closely, and they're racing to close the gap. The Raptor has been buying us time, training pilots, refining tactics, and stress testing tech that could decide the outcome of the next war. Lose that too early, and we might not get a second chance. And here's the interesting thing. While the Raptor has been a test bed for the F-47 and has helped it develop faster than usual, it's still a few years away. And when the 47 does fly, well, it's likely going to team up with the Raptor in the early part of its career. I imagine an F-47 controlling swarms of drones, sending them forward to fight, to set off enemy defenses, and take out anti-air sites. Meanwhile, a pair of Raptors could fly with the F-47 and provide highly maneuverable, close-range, air-to-air support. Nothing gets through. This form of teaming would bring out the strengths in each aircraft. So maybe the question isn't when the F-22 will retire. Maybe it's what happens to the future when it does. Yet for all its dominance, the Raptor isn't invincible. Even apex predators age, and in a world where war is shifting east toward longer ranges, wider oceans, and more advanced sensors, some of the F-22's weaknesses are starting to show. First, let's talk range. The F-22 was built during a different era, specifically the Cold War, where the primary threat was across the Fulda Gap, not the Philippine Sea. Its combat radius, around 500 nautical miles, and that's perfectly fine for Europe. But in a fight over the vast Pacific, that's going to be a problem. Tanker support becomes a lifeline and a liability. And guess what the enemy is targeting first? China has invested much in long-range air-to-air missiles designed to take out these flying gas stations at range. And like any tanker crew member will tell you, you can't kick ass without tanker gas. Said another way, you can't dominate the air if you can't get there. The newer fighter needs to have much more range. Then there's the numbers game. Only 187 Raptors were ever built. Fewer than 150 remain flyable today. That's not just rare, that's precious. These airframes are constantly rotating across missions, training exercises, and now test duties. We're asking one aircraft to be everywhere at once, a champion, a teacher, and sometimes even a ghost. That's a lot of pressure for a shrinking fleet with no new examples being built. And then there's the tech gap. As wild as it sounds, the Raptor, king of the skies, lacks an IRST system. That's right, no built-in infrared search and track. In an era where China and Russia are pumping out IRST-equipped jets, that's a critical sensor the Raptor simply doesn't have. Why? Blame the original stealth design priorities. Remember, the Raptor was essentially designed in the 1990s, and its unique, low-profile, gold-tinted canopy, it blocks the very helmet-mounted cueing systems that newer fighters like the F-35 rely on for high off-bore sight missile shots. It's like having a heavyweight boxer who can't look over his shoulder. Now don't get me wrong, the Raptor is still lethal, but modern air combat isn't just about who punches hardest. It's about who sees first, who shares data first, and who adapts the fastest. And the F-22, as legendary as it is, was built before much of that was possible. The Raptor doesn't just face obsolescence from new fighters, it faces it from the future itself. In the tapestry of military aviation history, there are aircraft that don't just shift the balance of power, they redefine it. The F-22 Raptor stands as one of these monumental achievements. As the world's first, and many say best, fifth-generation fighter, it didn't just enter the arena, it created an entirely new era of air combat. Our story begins in the late 20th century, when the world was caught in the Cold War's icy grip. A chess game like never before was being played on the global scale, with Washington and Moscow as the grandmasters, each move seemingly more daring than the last. In this era of the relentless arms race, a new piece emerged on the board. Stealth technology, a game changer in every sense of the word. The US was not just pushing the envelope, they were redesigning it. When the production F-22 Raptor was unveiled in 2005, it was a moment of awe. It was the embodiment of numerous cutting-edge technologies, a symbol of air superiority that the US Air Force had long sought. Its operational history, however, is a tale of a paradox. A fighter built for combat, yet its true strength lies in its deterrent nature. It was a warrior that didn't need to unsheath its sword to command respect. Today, we will take a look at what makes the Raptor the best fighter in the sky, how its engines are even more powerful than the SR-71 Blackbirds, and why its replacement will raise the bar even higher. Let's dissect what makes this fighter so powerful. First, their stealth. The F-22 Raptor's stealth is not just about being invisible, it's about being inconspicuous in a high-end theater where visibility means vulnerability. Every line, every curve of the Raptor is meticulously designed to scatter radar waves. Its top coating, a specialized radar-absorbent material, further cloaks it from prying electronic eyes. The result? A fighter jet with a radar signature as tiny as a marble. Then there's speed. Speed in aerial combat is not just about velocity, it's about the capability to react, engage, and just as importantly, disengage at will. The Raptor's twin engines are capable of propelling it to speeds over Mach 2, or twice the speed of sound, ensuring it can outrun and outmaneuver almost any adversary. This speed, combined with its stealth, makes it a ghost on the battlefield, unseen and unheard until it's too late. Many of you know that the Raptor can supercruise or fly supersonic without afterburner, using only what's known as dry thrust or military power. What you may not realize is that each of the Raptor's engines at dry thrust produce an incredible amount of power, about 26,000 pounds of force. That's more thrust than each of the F-15's engines at full afterburner. When the Raptor does engage its afterburners, it's an amazing sight. And if you thought producing more dry thrust than an F-15 at full burner was impressive, the Raptor in afterburner puts out more power than the SR-71 at max afterburner. Now you start to get an idea of just how powerful the Raptor's engines are. And we haven't even mentioned the Raptor's thrust vectoring capabilities. Not only do you get a very fast and very efficient fighter, but you also get two-dimensional thrust vectoring, which allows the Raptor to perform some maneuvers that few aircraft can do. And yet, it takes more than top speeds to fly, fight, and win. In the world of fighter jets, brains matter just as much as brawn. The Raptor's avionics suite is akin to a highly advanced nervous system. It fuses sensor data, radar signal, and environmental inputs to paint a comprehensive picture of the battlefield. For a pilot in the cockpit, this means unparalleled situational awareness, turning the Raptor into an extension of their senses. In many ways, the Raptor pioneered sensor fusion, so much so that for any fighter to be considered fifth generation, along with stealth, sensor fusion is one of the key ingredients. Now, you can fly fast, have all the situational awareness, but if you can't prosecute your targets, then you're not much of a fighter. Fortunately, the F-22's weapon systems are a study in precision and lethality. Concealed within the airframe are weapons bays, which can house medium to long-range AIM-120 AMRAAMs and short-range, heat-seeking AIM-9 Sidewinders. These missiles are known for their deadly accuracy and long reach. And of course, sometimes things break down and you need to resort to close combat methods. For this, the Raptor carries an internal cannon. The 20mm Vulcan cannon is a rapid-firing harbinger of destruction. When the Raptor chooses to reveal its claws, the outcome is devastating. Yet, technology marches on, and even the mightiest of warriors must eventually pass the torch. Enter the next-generation air dominance or NGAD fighter, the heir apparent to the Raptor's legacy. The NGAD isn't just an upgrade, it's a revolution in aerial combat philosophy. The NGAD fighter is still shrouded in secrecy. But what we do know is tantalizing. We'll start with its revolutionary design. The NGAD breaks away from traditional fighter designs. It's rumored to have a radical shape, perhaps without vertical stabilizers, a design choice that could redefine aerodynamics in fighter jets. This will allow for enhanced stealth and maneuverability, potentially eclipsing even that of the Raptor. And while the Raptor was stealthy or low observable, the NGAD aims to be virtually invisible. It's speculated to integrate next-generation stealth technologies, making it a phantom among jets. This could involve advanced composite materials, innovative radar-absorbent coatings, and a design that minimizes all forms of detection, even infrared and visual. Now, the NGAD is expected to feature a sensor suite that not only surpasses the Raptor, but sets a new standard for airborne surveillance and targeting. Imagine a fighter that can see farther, react quicker, and adapt in real time to the complexities of modern air combat. It sort of becomes a flying data center. Along with the new airframe, there are future armaments that are being developed. The NGAD is rumored to be equipped with next-generation air-to-air and air-to-ground weaponry. This includes not just advanced missiles, but possibly directed energy weapons, aka lasers, and even autonomous drones known as loyal wingmen, which will extend the fighter's reach and capabilities. Taking sensor fusion to the next level, perhaps the most groundbreaking aspect of the NGAD is its role as a nexus in network-centric warfare. It's designed to operate seamlessly with other assets, from satellites to ground forces, sharing data and creating a unified battle space for all allied participants. As we pivot from the Raptor to the NGAD, we're not just witnessing the evolution of technology, we're seeing a shift in the very philosophy of air combat. The Raptor was a product of its time, a Cold War warrior born in a world of traditional state adversaries. The NGAD, however, is being born into a world of asymmetrical threats, cyber warfare, and rapidly evolving battlefields. This transition from the 5th generation Raptor to the 6th generation NGAD fighter represents more than just a change in hardware. It's a symbol of the US Air Force's commitment to maintaining air superiority in an ever-changing world. It's a testament to human ingenuity, a beacon of innovation. In the end, the story of the Raptor and the NGAD is not just about jets. It's about the relentless pursuit of excellence and the unwavering spirit of innovation. As we eventually bid farewell to the Raptor, we await the dawn of the NGAD, ready to write the next chapter in the saga of air supremacy. And that brings us to the end of this ultimate 2-hour F-22 Raptor compilation. From its Cold War origins in the ATF program to its high-altitude execution of the Chinese spy balloon shootdown, and its current evolution into a silver-coated Super Raptor, there is absolutely no denying it. The F-22 remains today the undisputed king of the skies. It's a masterclass in aeronautical engineering and still the benchmark by which all other modern fighters will be judged for decades to come. What do you think about the Raptor's future? Will the current upgrades give this legendary fleet enough of a lease on life until the NGAD takes over? Or should the Air Force have built more of them in the first place? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And before you park your jet, if you are the walking, talking aviation encyclopedia in your friend group, make sure you look the part. Head over to the brand new merch store and grab yourself outrageously cool PilotPhotog aviation mugs or t-shirts. They're the ultimate conversation starter for your morning coffee and a great way to help keep this channel soaring to new heights without any turbulence. A massive thank you to my channel members and patrons whose direct support makes massive deep dives like this video possible. And if you haven't already, make sure you locked onto that subscribe button, engage and mash that notification bell so you'll never miss a future deployment. Thanks for watching. Keep your eyes to the skies. This is Tog, and as always, now you know.